Hey everyone, I just got back from a plant haul that I want to talk about today, and I just actually finished unloading all of the plants out there, and it is hot. It's getting hot out here really quick. So anyways, welcome back. I wanted to just kind of talk about what I picked up today in that plant haul, and then also just kind of give a general overview and feeling of how things are going today around here and how the past couple weeks have been going as well. So I took a little bit of a day trip from Sierra Vista to do some more plant shopping. I did have my mind set on a couple specific things that I wanted, and so the first thing that I was looking for was echinacea, and I have not been able to find echinacea anywhere. I have called nurseries, I have been to multiple different box stores, can't find it anywhere. The person I have found that had it was like so stunted that it just wouldn't have been great for cut flower production, and so I had to pass it up. The next thing I was after was scabiosa. So you saw in my last video essentially where I did a Hail Mary with scabiosa and just planted it outside, even though it didn't look great because of that potting mix issue that I had. And so that was also on my list of things. And so I did stop at the box stores. I did find one that had scabiosa, but the plants were really pitiful. The plant stems were busted on a bunch of them, and a lot of the plant stems were also very windy and spindly and not great. So I moved on. And I did find some things in their clearance section though that I'll talk about. And so one thing that I really did not anticipate on even starting, or was not even a thought in my mind this year, is I found calla lilies there. These calla lilies were marked down in the clearance section, and they looked great. They looked almost in their prime, but I can see why. They probably don't have maybe much more than a week or two left of life in them. However, calla lilies are perennial, and they usually have like a bulb or a rhizome that you plant in and they come back the following year. And so that's what interests me the most, was finding those perennials that are on markdown, that I know that yes, they may be past their prime at this point in time, but going into next year they will return in another bountiful harvest, and maybe even 2 times better. So I went ahead and picked those up. The other thing I picked up was they had a lot of Spanish lavender closed out, and so I went ahead and picked up a couple of those for Paul, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. So box stores were kind of a bust other than some of that clearance stuff, and to be honest guys, box stores are not meant for cut flower production unless you want lilies or something like that, or if you're going to buy the dahlia bulbs or seeds to start your own. Box stores, the nurseries they purchase from, are mostly focused on making dwarf type varieties of flowers. So these flowers are more so intended on people who are putting them out for landscaping, to beautify their house, to put into pots, to put into hanging baskets, those sorts of things. And so they're not intended to be cutting off of, and a lot of them are annuals anyways. You will see perennials, but not nearly as many and not as much selection. With that, I went ahead and went to one more place, which is the Ace Hardware, which is pretty well known for their garden center down there at that specific location. So I went in there not expecting much, but I did have maybe an inkling, well, maybe they have echinacea there. They do get different things from independent grow houses that they work with. I didn't find any echinacea, but the promising thing that I had happen is that the lady I talked to, like right out of the gate, I said, I'm looking for echinacea. And before I usually follow that up with coneflower, because a lot of people don't know what the hell I'm talking about when I say echinacea. And so I usually say echinacea coneflower, but she actually cut me off before I could say coneflower and said, oh, coneflower. So I knew she knew what I was talking about right out of the gate, which is promising. But she said no. She said, unfortunately, we're out. Didn't get that. However, I did see that the scabious they had there was just beautiful, and I couldn't pass it up. I had to go ahead and get it. The stems are nice and long. They are very thick and sturdy. Complete difference from the big box store variety that I had saw earlier. So I went ahead and picked up a couple of those to get planted out, and hopefully those will perennialize for next year. And then I'll get a couple more cuttings off of them this year. I always make certain to buy plants that haven't all fully bloomed out. The other thing that really surprised me that I was not expecting is that they had a ton of yarrow plants there. And I have to tell you guys, I've seen some yarrow around at different places like box stores, and even surprisingly enough, Tractor Supply had some yarrow and they looked awful. Actually made me feel not too bad about my beds dying out because they looked terrible. But however, at the Ace in their garden center had the most beautiful quality yarrow plants I think I've ever seen, y'all. Like cut flower grade variety. In fact, the species that they were carrying, the varieties they had were from usually some of the cut flower variety seeds that you can pick up online. I knew I couldn't pass up on these. Having y'all know my struggle, I have started yarrow bed not once, not twice, 3 times. I have put out beautiful transplants only to have them burn up like a crisp and just fail to thrive. And so I still don't know what's happened, y'all. I don't know if it is the soil. I don't know if it's the sun, the watering that they're just not happy with. But so I've got one more tray started in my grow room. I just started it the other day, and I said, that's it. And this variety was a variety that I picked up from a seed bank at a library. And I said, that's it. I said, if I cannot get those to establish, I give up. But thankfully, I don't think I have to give up too hard, because this variety that I picked up today is pretty gorgeous and healthy and looks amazing. And y'all, it's like 2 foot tall. And that's the shocker to me, is that it wasn't like 6 inches and blooming out. It was tall. So I'm excited about those. And so I know it feels ridiculous buying something that should be so damn easy to grow like yarrow, but here I am. So let's talk a little bit about the south-facing bed. So I have a south-facing part of my property that I've recently redone. I've added soil down, I've put mulching down, established some borders and things in order to make that into a productive area. And it's been a struggle to get anything at all to want to thrive up there. In fact, I planted, my sunflower saga that, had me all kind of upset. I planted about 20 to 30 seeds up in there just to direct sow and see if I could get anything to come out. And I only have like maybe 4 sunflowers, honestly, that are coming through up there out of all the seeds that I've thrown down. A lot of the transplants I put in there that I started indoors, like Pro Cuts and things like that, even some of the branching variety transplants I've started, a lot of those didn't make it. They just shriveled up on extremely hot days and just didn't thrive. And so it's been a struggle finding something up there that's going to take that heat and take the long periods of sun. I did throw some amaranth seedlings up there, because amaranth is known to be a hot tolerant type of plant. And so thankfully those appear to be establishing up there. The seedlings are thriving, they're looking good, and I'm giving them twice-day watering, which I think is a huge help. I have also had success recently with my Cosmos seedlings coming up, which I'm excited about because I didn't think I was going to get any, to be honest. I tried Cosmos from transplant and they just fall over and wilt and don't make it. And then, I feel like I did throw seeds down and nothing came up. But I've been watering the heck out of that bed. And I think that's the key for those to get them started. And so hopefully I'm hoping I can get those Cosmos going, and then they tend to like heat as well. So I'm thinking maybe I can get them to take it up there in that south facing bed that I have. And so I had the 2 beds for my yarrow. Again, those transplants didn't make it, as I mentioned. Instead of replacing that with the yarrow that I bought, because I want to save this yarrow because I've paid good money for it, I let Paul take that bed over. And so we decided to go with Spanish lavender instead, because Spanish lavender is very tolerant of our heats out here, does exceptionally well. Once you water to get it established, you usually do not have to water much. In fact, overwatering is the top killer of that out here. That's what we have going on in that bed up front. And if I can think of anything else that's gonna take the heat and thrive, I might toss it in there as well. But for now, that's what we've got going on in there. Paul's garden is actually thriving extremely well. He is watering it very thoroughly every day, also to make certain that everything is getting established correctly. Our corn is doing really great, and that is going to be a Three Sisters. All of those 4 raised beds that we have with established corn in it is going to also be a Three Sisters bed. So he does have some pole beans also coming up in succession with the corn. The corn's about a foot high now as I make this video, and we just had some pole beans peek through, and they're just standard Kentucky Wonder, quick growing variety. And then we will also have squashes that will be going to be planted in there in succession with them as well, which will be the Magdalena Big Cheese Squash, which is a native seed company for this local area, so that should do very well. If you don't know the Three Sisters method, highly recommend you look it up. It's very successful, and it kind of just regenerates the soil as it's being everything's being pulled out of it. So we've had success with this in the past with gardening. That so far it's going good. We have other things around the yard like tapari beans that are meant for drying that we're going to use, and again, those are local to the area. They're doing extremely well. They're actually doing really great next to my onions. They tend to like that companion planting. And what else have we got going on? We've got cowpeas that are starting to finally push through, and those will be more of a cover crop for summer once we hit that really super duper hot season before the monsoons and things kick in. We have a ton of tomatoes, tomato transplants. My honeydew melons are still going. I've got 2 plants that I can't tell if they're honeydew or cucumber, but they're out there. We've got potatoes. I've got lettuce mix going, butternut squash, a little bit of everything right now. So we are focusing on having things to be able to preserve and save for the upcoming season. And so kind of brings me into my next point. So Paul's garden's doing fantastic. My garden is struggling here and there, y'all, and I kind of beat myself up a little bit this past week, because there's days I go out into the garden and things look really great. Like they look they look like they're doing well, like everything's thriving, and it's everything looks like it's establishing well, and it's finally getting off to a good foot and growing and staying green. And I will go out the next day and everything looks like it's struggling. The other thing is that I plant 10 marigolds and I come out the next day and 3 have vanished out of nowhere. So it's like, did something eat these? Did the sun bake them? Like, I don't know. But that's the stuff I'm talking about. It's a struggle. It's a lot of failures mixed in with a little bit of success. It feels like. I kind of had a heart-to-heart with Paul the other day, and I basically kind of gave myself an ultimatum and said, if I cannot get anything super productive with some of these other types of species I'm growing out here within the next few months, then I am going to essentially pull or just let those die out, and then we're just going to put more and more vegetables and things out there to get those going, because I know zinnias are growing okay out here. In fact, from seed, they've done great. The ones I've transplanted haven't done great, but the ones from seed direct sowing has been awesome. The amaranth seems to do well. The sunflowers kind of do well. But the things that are extra, I guess you could say, like the eucalyptus and the marigolds, basil, and the cerinthe, the yarrow, things like that status, you know, these extra little things, they're just not tolerating it out here. And that is so frustrating when you try so hard to get these things established and you baby them along, and then they can't take it. And it's nothing that, you know, you've done. It's the weather. It's the high 50-mile-per-hour winds. It's the, you know, insanely hot UV index with not 0% humidity, although we get pretty darn close. You know, our humidity ranges from 3 to 11% most days. So it is those factors that are really causing a lot of issue. And it's nothing, like I said, I don't think it's anything that I am doing other than, you know, buying bad soil and stuff like that, obviously. I think the thing that really frustrates me is that I know damn well if I were to have done this in Ohio, if I were to have done this in the Carolinas or somewhere else, that I would not have as many issues as I have right now. It's the weather that is beating me up. And I've mentioned this before, but I can't continue to beat my head upon a rock without result. And, you know, it's that all famous quote, you know, what's the definition of insanity? Repeating the same thing over and over with the same result. And so I can't keep doing it if it's not working. And so that is, you know, kind of the conversation I had with Paul, is that if we're not seeing any progress coming, we're just going to yank it and use those beds for something else until we can get maybe better soil established or figure out what works here, what doesn't. And so I'm not saying I'm throwing in the towel fully. I'm just saying we're going to focus more on varieties that actually do thrive out here. And if that means very simple and basic bouquets that we pull out during the season, then so be it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So it's been mixed feelings, to be quite honest. And again, this isn't to say like I'm shutting it down or anything, because like I just bought a bunch of yarrow and other things to go out there. So but it's definitely we're gonna pull back a little bit and not focus so much on these specialty things and focus more basically on the simple types of things, I think, going forward, to seeing if we can get, I guess, essentially a more model that is quantity related rather than just not florist quality type of things. But anyways, I'm rambling and this video is getting a little bit long. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of the video footage I have added into this during while I've been speaking with you, and hopefully I'll catch you again on the next video. I do appreciate those of you who continue to come back and watch and support me on these videos and provide input when you can. You know, thanks for watching, my friends. Take care. I'll see you next time.